Lulu Walks the Dogs, chapters 19 through 21. Patrick, Preston, Polly, Pete, money for my special treat. Julie, Jackie, Jenny, Joan, money for myself alone. Money, 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 money. Lulu sang a song as she hurried to Brutus's house on Monday morning. Fleshman was usually waiting for her outside, except today there wasn't any Fleshman. Lulu gave him a minute, and then she gave him 2 minutes, and then she gave him 3 minutes. 3 strikes and you're out, Lulu said to no one in particular, after which she announced, So, what if Fleshman isn't here? I'm going to walk these dogs all by myself. I know I can walk these dogs all by myself. She took a deep breath and said out loud, sounding a lot more sure than maybe she was, I'm ready to walk these dogs all by myself. And I have to admit that for a little while, Lulu actually looked as if she was ready because Brutus followed obediently as Lulu dropped biscuits and made him a dog biscuit trail. Pookie listened politely as Lulu coaxingly tooted her flute, after which, as in Pookie, Lulu, not Lulu, pooped. And Cordelia, after Lucy said some gooey blah blah blahs to her in German, was persuaded to waddle out of her hiding place. But as soon as Mr. and Mrs. waved goodbye to their Cordelia and closed the front door, the morning got worse than it ever had been before. Lulu, standing under a tree, said to the dogs in one of her bossiest voices, Okay, let's move it. Brutus, Cordelia, Pookie. Except she forgot and rhymed the pook part with book. This, as you may remember, hurts Pookie's feelings, which, as you may remember, you don't want to do. Pookie, leaping up high in the air, fastened her pointy teeth into Lulu's jean jacket, holding on tight and yelping at the same time, while Cordelia slipped out of her collar and went dashing back onto the porch where she hid herself deep, deep down in the pile of junk. As all this was going on, Big Brutus, who wasn't as dumb as he looked, circled wildly around and around the tree trunk, wrapping his leash around it just as tightly as Lulu had done on their very first walk together. And Lulu, who had been leaning against the tree as she tried and kept failing to shake off Pookie, discovered, too late, that she had been totally tied by Brutus's leash to the trunk. Totally, utterly, absolutely, embarrassingly, humiliatingly tied. She couldn't move her arms. She couldn't move her legs. She couldn't chase after Cordelia or shake off Pookie, and she certainly couldn't untangle herself from the leash, still attached at the other end to Brutus, who was standing just out of her reach, triumphantly woofing. And if you find it hard to believe when I tell you that Brutus tied up Lulu on purpose, remember who's in charge of this story? Me. Lulu wriggled and wriggled, but she couldn't get herself loose. So after a while, she stopped wriggling and began to think about what she could do to get loose. After a longer while, she started wriggling some more until finally, after feeling that she had been tied forever to the trunk of the tree, Lulu saw, well, you know who she saw. Fleshman. Yep, there he was, good old Fleshman, strolling slowly down the street, playing You Are My Sunshine on his flute. Just the person Lulu did not want to see. Just the person Lulu needed to see. Just in time to take another time out. Time out. I think we ought to discuss what's going on here. I don't feel one bit sorry for Lulu. Do you? You remember I said back in chapter 1 that since she met Mr. B, Lulu wasn't as big a pain as she'd been, and not nearly as rude, but she sure was being extremely rude to Fleshman. Rude, rude, rude. And also ungrateful. For Fleshman helped her over and over and said he was happy to help and didn't even want money from her for helping, and all Lulu did was boss him around and threaten that she would throw up on him. Plus, she wouldn't be his friend or even his teammate. Maybe she needs to keep staying tied to that tree until she says, I'm sorry, Fleshman. Wait, I think she just whispered, I'm sorry, Fleshman. Chapter 20. Well, it turns out that Lulu didn't exactly say, "I'm sorry, Fleshman." What she actually said to him was, "Untie me, Fleshman," followed 10 or 20 seconds later by a growly sounding, "Please." Fleshman stopped tooting and stood right in front of the very grumpy, very tied up Lulu. "Teammates untie each other," Fleshman told her, "but I'm not your teammate." "An assistant unties his boss," said Lulu, giving Fleshman one of her fiercest glares. "And Fleshman, you're my assistant, so untie me." "In case you didn't notice," said Fleshman, who wasn't one bit bothered by Lulu's glare, "I am not your assistant any more. I quit last Friday." "A person can't quit on Friday," said Lulu, "just by not coming back to work on Monday. A person has to say, 'I quit,' to quit." "Okay, then," Fleshman said to Lulu, "I quit." And then he walked slowly past her, playing some more of "You Are My Sunshine" on his flute, with Lulu loudly yelling, "You get back here, Fleshman! You get back here now!" Time out. I think that I need to mention that by this time, Lulu and Fleshman were quite late for school. But although for several hours they weren't where they should have been, not one single person noticed they weren't there. Not Lulu's teacher, not Fleshman's teacher, not any of their classmates. No one. Plus, nobody walking down that street, and lots of people were, seemed to notice that Lulu was tied to a tree. And not just tied to a tree, but wriggling and yelling and making quite a remarkable fuss. In actual life, this almost never could happen. In the stories I write, things like this happen a lot. Deal with it. Oh, and I think you should mention that by this time, Pookie had fallen asleep, let go of Lulu's jacket, and dropped to the ground, where she curled in a tight white fuzzball and yawned a great big yawn and kept on sleeping. And that Cordelia, bored with hiding under the junk pile, with nobody trying to find her, it wasn't much fun, waddled over to Pookie, flopped down right beside her, and soon was snoring very loudly in German. And then Brutus, his heavy head drooping lower and lower, was just as deep asleep as the rest of them, except for Lulu, of course, who was wide awake and still screaming, "Get back here, Fleshman! No!" Chapter 21. Fleshman, who got back there. "Okay, I'll untie you," Fleshman said to Lulu, "but only if you'll explain how come you hate me." "Oh, I can do that," said Lulu. "That'll be easy." And then she gave him 10 different explanations. "You're always eating carrots. You never eat anything that's bad for you. Your sneakers look like they just came out of a store. You play an actual flute instead of a toy one. You wear that ugly t-shirt that says," I didn't mention this t-shirt earlier because that t-shirt makes me want to throw up. You, oh, so here's a t-shirt. "I'm here to bring some happiness into your life." You have this really, really annoying smile. You keep saying things like you can speak German and French. You keep saying things like, "I'm honored and thrilled to serve you." You got a day off from school because you're so smart. You're a total expert on dogs and you don't even have a dog. All the moms and the dads in the world think you're perfect. And maybe you are. And how can a person not hate a person who's perfect? Okay, so I made a mistake. Lulu gave him 11 explanations, but forget about that right now. I'm anxious to hear what Fleshman will say. Aren't you? That's the end.